All right, everybody. It is 8:30. Grab a seat. Wow, that quieted down quick. Good job. Hey, everybody. I'm Paul Showalter, Vice President of Operations at Diagon Systems, and welcome to this year's summit. Way to go. All right. Not the Builder Summit this time. It's the SMS Summit. Hope everybody had a safe trip in. Heard about a Uber accident on the way here. Oh, and there he is right there. Hopefully there was no Boeing-related incidents for anybody coming in. Some housekeeping notes. Restrooms are over there behind that hallway, so real close. Emergency exits. I'm sure there's some out there, but I know I've got one right behind me, so that's where I'm going. Follow me if we have to get out of here. We have some hand sanitizers around, so please use those. I was also told by Kelly that if you had your name badge, if they had to print it for you at the desk, make sure she has your email address, because there was some way that didn't get in on the registration. So please make sure that you get email address to Kelly. We also have power strips running through the tables. I'm sure you've seen those. We tried to tape them down as best as we could, but be very careful on those, please. Some of the cables are hanging out there. Note that you may have power closer to you in front or in back, but just be careful where you step. In addition, we have about 100 or so people online. So you see microphones set up on the floor. Please use them when asking a question, making a statement, heckling me, whatever you want to do. Please use those. I did the monitoring of the online feed last year, and it is impossible to hear you guys unless you go to the microphone. So please stand in line and use a microphone on the floor. Also want to introduce the other Diagon staff that's here. Kurt is here somewhere. Oh, he's in the back. There's Kurt. You've probably already met Kelly and Justin that were up in front. I don't know if they're in the room now. We also have Chris back there and Paul Tiel. Finally, we've done everything we can to keep this summit free, to make sure it's a free event. It gets harder and harder every year because it keeps growing every year. And we were able to do that because of our sponsors. So please join me in thanking Stantec, Alpha, Tetra Tech, Jacobs, WSP, Pond, and Gordian. Throughout the week, when you run into them, please thank them for their involvement, because that really helps keep this what this event is. All right, let's take a look at the agenda. So today is training day. It is kind of a soft opening of the summit. Kurt will do a more formal welcome tomorrow. Today's more of a casual day. We hope you just sit back and relax and hope you learn something. I'll be talking about the 1.5 million things that an assessor needs to remember. Then we'll break for lunch. Sorry, lunch is on you. Then Kurt, in the afternoon, will go through SMS, which is pretty exciting because that's our future. If you want to walk around with an agenda in your pocket, got a QR code here for the agenda. It's the same. I think it's on the back of your name tag as well. For those online, this QR code should work for you as well. Speaking of QR codes, this year we have some instant polls that we're going to do, where we can ask you questions and then we can show you live results. Let's try a couple of them. All right, so first one, who are you with? So if you scan that code with your phone, you will see some options for putting in an answer. And in theory, if I advance the slide and come back, we're going to see results. So hopefully the angle is okay for some of you in the middle. So let's see what happens. Oh, I don't even have to advance it. Here they come. And I think we got some more answers down here. If I scroll, nope, can't. Oh, hang on. I guess I can't scroll in presenter mode. All right, DoD is leading. Others coming on strong. Here comes Homeland Security. All right, still got some more coming in. Awesome, hey, it works. Pretty excited about that. All right, that's great. All right, let's go on. We got another one. All right, how many years have you used Builder? And I think, again, I need to click and come back. Here we go. I realized after this, when we put that, I'm green as a green plus. If you're that green, you may not even know what a green plus is. So, could have been it's a trick question, yes. Could have been a little calculation error there. All right, 1 to 5. Lots of new folks, 5 to 10, over 10. Not awesome, okay. And then, just for grins, how far did you travel to get here? I've already heard it, I don't know. Ballpark. Okay, if you go forward and come back, there we go. Wow. Kurt, maybe we should have had a prize for the person who came the furthest. Did anybody come in from Oconus? Okay. How about the corners of the country, like Washington or New England? Oh. You win the prize that we don't have. So 500 to 1,000 miles. Interesting. And 1,000 to 2,000. So a lot of you made an effort to get here. We appreciate that. And just to note that Kurt may ask some similar questions to this tomorrow because we may have some different folks that are coming in tomorrow that didn't come in for training day. All right, so let's do some training. All right, so for this year, I didn't want to do a click here, click there training. I wanted to talk more about the thought process and the decision making. And that's because even if you're not the one that's physically doing an assessment, you might be writing the scope for it, or you might be hiring the assessment team, or you might be reviewing their data. So you need to know what's going on to make sure that you can trust that data. I've done facility condition assessments for decades. I like to think that I've earned each of these gray hairs. I really earned the ones that fell out. I'm really, really proud of those. Back when I was starting, we did everything on paper and pencil. We took pictures with a camera, a film camera that was like this big, and it's snowing, and it was uphill both ways. Come back to the office and type up a report, not on a typewriter, I'm not that old, but it probably was Word version 1.0. Point is that the technology has certainly changed, but the role of the assessor has not. There's still a preparation, there's a performance, and there's a delivery. That has not changed. So let's talk about that. All right, first, where does Builder sit with everything? This is actually going to be more of kind of a Builder training. I know I talked about this is SMS Summit, but Builder is still kind of the king of the hill. Builder is part of the suite of products that will now become called domains when we get into ESMS, and Kurt will get into more of that this afternoon. but it is part of all of these different suite of products that are inside of SMS. Purpose of Builder, it's an asset management system. And it answers the burning questions of, what do I have in my building? What condition is it in? How long will it last? And then should I repair or replace it? It's not meant for changing light bulbs or replacing fan belts. It's more for, you've got a water heater in building 4 and it's likely going to fail in 3 years, so start budgeting for it. You've got a roof on building 7 that's going to need to be replaced in 5 years, start budgeting for it. Quick story time on that one. We worked on a project, and at the end, on the closeout, we met with the leadership from that team, and they're looking at the data, and they're like, well, we don't see everything in there. We don't see the screws and the nails and the light bulbs and fan belts and things like that. And I'm like, well, that's not really Builder's purpose. And he said, well, who are you? I said, well, I'm just your Builder subject matter expert who you've been paying to guide you on this. And if you wanted that, it needs to be in the scope of work. So the assessment team followed the scope of work, and he wasn't happy with that because he wanted Builder to be a CMMS, so he didn't have to go to any other system. That's not really what Builder is meant to do. It can do that, sure, you can put in every light bulb into Builder if you want, but that's not really what it's meant to do. It's meant to be that long-term planning and budgeting tool. All right, so how's Builder organized? It has a hierarchy, at least for now, until ESMS comes in. It's going to change a little bit. We start at the top with an organization, and you can have child organizations under that. You don't have to have those, but you can subdivide an organization into child organizations. Below that, you have a site, and then within sites, you can have a complex, but those are optional. You might use a complex to group buildings by a specific location, or maybe by a use or a specific type of building. You can group those into complexes, but again, those are just optional. Then you scroll down to your buildings, and then into your systems. And then that's when uniformat classifications kick in. Uniformat is just a way to classify like items within a group. So you can see on the example, and if I move my mouse to the right where I can't see it on my screen, but I see it over here. Actually, I don't even see it. Oh, there it is. That's awkward. Well, pretend I'm putting the mouse in the right spot. So under C10, we've got interior construction, that's a system. Under D10, we've got conveying, and that's a system. D40, fire protection, that's a system. And then drilling down further into, under D40, we have a component, and in this case, it's D4040 sprinklers. There could be several different components under one system. We're just showing you one to make it simple here, and this one's the D4040 sprinklers. And then we have the section. Section is the fundamental level of Builder. Your inventory is collected at the section level, your assessments are done at the section level, and your work item recommendations are done at the section level. Note how each time we step down from the system, we add 2 digits. That's how uniformat works. Please say them in those 2 digits. Don't call that section down there D400,001 or 404,001 or D40,4001. It's D40,4001. So add the 2 digits each time you step down from that system all the way down to the section. All right, the life cycle curve. Every section has a life cycle curve, and all things come back to that life cycle curve. On the left, we have the condition index, or CI, and on the bottom, we have time. 40 is the end of the design life for all sections. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be 10 doors or 1 roof or 3 rooftop units. Doesn't matter what it is, the design life ends at 40. It's not 0 like you might think. It's not going to go all the way to 0. Builder says that it's at the end of its design life at a 40. Now, if you get more life out of it, that's great, but it was only designed to last that long. So in this case, we've got a 20-year design life. Quick note on the a design life versus a service life. A design life would be what the item is, how long the item is expected to exist, and the service life is what you actually get. So you'll see that coming up in a little bit later when we're talking about the inspections and what the inspections do to the service life compared to the design life, because the design life never changes. The design life is always set, but what you get out of that item would be the service life. Oops. All right, assessor's role. First thing you're gonna gather and record the inventory, and you're gonna perform inspections and provide a rating. 2 things. 2. Easy, right? Thank you for laughing at that. No, it is not easy. That's when those 1.5 million things that you have to remember come into play. The inspection is relatively easy. You look at it and you rate it. But getting all the sections the way you want, make sure you get them all in. You get them in the way you want, and what you call them, you got to get those in there correctly too. That is much harder and takes much longer. And of course, no one does it the same way. There's guidance out there, but everybody does it different. All right, the importance of inventory. Obviously, you can't manage your assets if you don't know what you have. So that's where inventory takes care of. It lets you know what you've got in each of these buildings. The inventory is more important than the inspections because builder needs to know when to start that life cycle curve and how long it lasts. Everything comes back to that life cycle curve. Builder needs to know where to start that clock. So it can take longer to figure out, especially if you have a Franken building with multiple additions and renovations, and you've got to figure out where those stop and start. And why do you need to do that? Because the life cycle. Builder needs to know that the addition part of that foundation has a different year on it to know when to start that clock on that life cycle curve. So you'd have one life cycle curve for the original foundation and another life cycle curve for the addition. So you've got to know what those different pieces are, and sometimes it could take forever. Oh my God, if it's in a building where we had no idea where these additions started and stopped, and we had no help locally with the facility manager. He's like, I don't know. So it's very difficult. That's what I call those mini mysteries that you got to figure out. You got to do that because you can't just say it's a door like we have on the pictures here, because it could be a metal personnel door. It could be a glass storefront door. It could be a roll-up door. Well, they're all doors, but they all have different materials. They all have different life cycle curve lengths, and they might have different times of when to start that clock. So builder has to know exactly what you've got. So that can take a long time to get that inventory correct, especially if you don't have drawings. All right, section requirements. Every time you create a section, builder requires 5 things. First thing is the material equipment category, and that just defines what it is. You know, it's an interior door. You get to the subtype, and then that is what it specifically is. And in most cases, in most uses of builder, there will be lots of choices on what those specific types are, because that gives you the detail. It could be a 400-gallon tank. It could be a 200-gallon tank. It could be a 5-gallon tank. Whatever it might be, you pick the one that is closest to what you actually have, because that's going to give the best information to builder of when to start that life cycle curve. There's also a general subtype, and that is just kind of when you don't have to call out a specific type. Sometimes in builder, general is the only option that you can pick. There's also other, and that's when you know what it is, but you don't have the choice. It's not in the drop down in builder. And in that case, you want to take pictures of it, describe it in the inventory comments, make sure that somebody knows what that is, because right now Builder just says it's an other, so we got to know what that is. There's also an unknown, and some agencies completely strip unknown out of their catalog because they think if you don't know what it is, you probably shouldn't be out there looking at it. But in some cases, that's still available, but that's when you have no idea what it is. Similar to the other, if you do run into that and unknown is an option for your scope of work, take pictures of it, make a lot of notes, because we've got to know what that is, because Builder really wouldn't know what an unknown is. You also have to have a section name. So this is used to either locate or differentiate similar items. You've got 5 roof exhausts with 5 different years, 5 separate sections. If that is part of your scope, you can group them, and we'll get to grouping in a minute, but you can also have those as separate ones. But why, if they are 5 different years, you would keep them separate. You can't group them because they have different time, the clock starts differently on the life cycle curve. So if it's a different material, or if it's a different year, it's got to be a separate section because it's going to have a separate life cycle curve. Note that the section name defaults to NA, and in some cases NA works fine, but if you have to be specific about where it is or what it is, then you're going to have to change that section name. You may be restricted on a scope of work and has to be all caps for your section name. That's pretty common through pretty much everybody we work with. I don't know if there's too many that allows non-caps in a section name, but that's usually, that'll be part of your scope of work. Sometimes it is required that you put the location, and we always like to have the location in the section name because you got to know where it is. If it's in a larger building and you can't find it, you want to know, you want a clue to where it is. And I got a story about that coming up. Some require the equipment ID to be put into the section name. Whatever it may be, you've got to figure that out. If you don't have that in your scope, then it's going to be up to the assessors. So make sure that you always have to have a naming convention in the scope of work. Without any guidance, if you have no guidance at all, think about what I call the next person in 3 years rule. Can the next person in 3 years who knows nothing about the building or what that section is, could they see your data and walk right up to it? And if they can't, then it's not a good section name. And if they can, then you got a good section name. So you got to think about that next person rule. Here's the story on that. Assessment team was out looking at several buildings on 2 different trips. So they went out once, they came back for like 3 weeks, came home, then they went back out and did some more. While they were doing some of the cleanup, I get a call from an assessor, and he's like, "Hey, I can't find," I don't even know what it was. It was like a panel board or something. I can't find this panel board. I'm like, "Okay, I'm 900 miles away, but I'll see if I can help you out." I bring up the database. I'm like, "Okay, let's look at it," and bring it up and look, and it's just, yeah, it's not, has a really horrible, I think it might have just been NA on the section name. I'm like, "Man, who did this?" And I'm on the phone with the guy. I'm like, "Dummy, you were the one that did this section 3 weeks ago. So that next person in 3 rules, he was the next person in 3 rules, only it was 3 weeks. So be very careful about the section name if you can't find it. If you don't think the next person in 3 years can find it, add more detail. All right, more section requirements. You also have to have a quantity. Beware of the unit of measure. Beware. We see, this has got to be the biggest problem we see when we do data reviews, is when you're not paying attention to the unit of measure. You think it's square feet and you put in each. You think it's each and you put in square feet. And then you might have 400 transformers or something like that, or 1,000 transformers because it was a 1,000 kVA transformer. And it blows Builder's numbers out completely. So be very careful about the unit of measure. And sometimes even if you can select something, it's a square footage, and you change your mind and you pick something else on the subtype, it'll change the unit of measure, and you don't even realize it. So always be careful to look at that unit of measure. Always get asked, how accurate do you need to be with the quantities? Well, let me back up. If you know the exact quantity, then put it in, certainly. But if it's a square foot or a linear foot, round up. You don't need to spend 20 minutes making sure that you've got the difference between 9 square feet. It's not going to move the needle for Builder to have you take that much time to do that. You can do an estimate on the square footage and the linear feet and round up. But if it's an each, be spot on. Always want to make sure that if it's an each, because that's usually a larger ticket item. So we need to make sure that those quantities are correct. When I was working on the very first Builder project I ever worked on, I was on the other side of the table. I was on the assessment side. I was a project manager of an assessment team. And I was responsible for getting all the takeoffs ready for the guys to go out in the field. And because of the way I am, I got like a pair of dividers. Does anybody even know what a pair of dividers are anymore? I got dividers, I got a rule stick, and I'm checking the curves of the walls and the angles, and I'm subtracting out 21 square feet for each door. And then I've got a stack of this high to do. So I thought, okay, this isn't going to work out very good. So realized at that point, go ahead and round up on those square footages. But on things like an elevator, you don't want to round up. So if you've got 2 elevators, don't round up to 5. That will completely ruin the costs. So that's when you want to be spot on the eaches. All right, year build. So year build is the last one that you have to have. Oh, I forgot on the example on the graphic here. This is an actual clip from a catalog of one of our clients, and I think it's on exterior walls or something like that. But you see, just in one component, we have a variety. We have square feet and linear feet and each. So be very, very careful when you're out there and pay attention to those units of measure. All right, the year built. When you're creating a section, it will default to the building's construction date. And while that's nice, when you're out in the field and you see that sometime, or even if you're not in the field, if you're just on the desktop looking at Builder, you can ignore that field because it's already filled in. So you think it's right. Well, that's not always the case because it could be an old building, and it could have been a renovation, and that section that you're looking at is not from the original date. So we see that error a lot too, where we have 90-year-old sink and it's rated green because it was not a 90-year-old sink. They just didn't change the date. They just kept the default in there. So always keep an eye on that date, and it's important because of the life cycle curve. The builder needs to know when to start that curve. There's also an estimated checkbox on that year if you have no idea what that year is. It's a good tool, but don't overuse it because Builder changes the way it calculates the CI based on what you give it, depending on whether you've hit that estimated box or not. And I always like to say, don't be a dummy about it either. Use it, but don't be a dummy. We will see foundations that have an estimated box. They know what year the building was built, but they didn't know when the foundation was built. I mean, I don't think 2 years later they put the foundation in. So if you know the building year, don't put the foundation, don't make the superstructure. Anything that was created with the building is going to have the year of the building, in most cases. Now, yes, you could have a foundation sit for 2 years and then the building comes back on top of it. It's an edge case, not going to happen, but 99.9% of the time, the foundation is going to be the same year as the building. All right, let's take a look at an example of this and what the estimated box does do. So we've got a 1985 roof hatch. And first of all, this goes back into my don't be a dummy. We know the year of the building, but do they think in a couple years after the building was built, they thought, hey, we might need to get on the roof at some point. Let's put in a hatch. Probably not. It was probably constructed with the building. So right away, I would probably flag this and say, guys, this probably is not an estimated. Second, we've got a 40-year-old hatch, and it's rated mid-green. You can see the, if I can't point to it, but the middle one there, the CSCI. In 2021, it was given a mid-green. Builder has already degraded it down to a 93. Builder was expecting, I looked this one up, Builder was expecting this to be a 42, and it was given a mid-green. So I would question whether that year was correct anyway. But because the estimated box was checked, Builder says, okay, I don't know where to start that life cycle curve. I trust what the assessor did on that rating. So Builder's not going to make any kind of an adjustment to it. I will show you one where Builder will make an adjustment to it. But because the Builder doesn't know when to start the clock, it says, okay, it's going to be a 95, and then it starts degrading from that point. Now, it's a similar item, and I think this is from the same building because it's 1985. Here's what happens without that checkbox. So this is because it's a 40-year-old sink, it is past its design life, and the assessor gave it a green minus. You can see that in 2021, it was an 88, so that's a green minus, but the current estimated CI is a 34. So Builder said, nope, I don't believe a 40-year-old sink is a green minus because it's past its design life. I don't believe it. So Builder says, I'm going to knock that down a little bit. So be careful using that box. A lot of assessors just don't take the time to research what the year actually is. If it's a piece of equipment, you might be able to get it from the serial number. And again, use the box, but don't abuse it because it does change the way that Builder calculates the CI. All right, so those were the things that Builder requires in a section. There's also a few optional things that you can do. One of them is an inventory photo, and that is, again, I wish I could point a little bit better, but on the far right, it'll say in attachments, and in parentheses, there's a 3. So that means that there's 3 photos that were put into this section at the inventory level, not the inspection. We're still just in the inventory. You can also add a comment to a section, and that's more towards the middle, up on top. Then there's a little green check mark. That means that there's a comment at the inventory level. And then you'll see on the second tab next to General Info, there's section details, and there's a parentheses with a 1, so that means there is 1 section detail in there. So let's take a look at that. So a section detail, there's about, there's 15 or 16 or 17 different section details that you can add to a section. And these are things like the ID number, and that's if there's a unique asset tag or asset number that's on a piece of equipment, even if it's just written in on a Sharpie, but you might also have an official tag on it. That would go into the ID field. And that's important if you have a CMMS and that number from that asset tag actually ties into a different database, like a Maximo or something like that. If we have that number, that unique number, then we can have Builder talk to Maximo through that number. We can connect through that number. I heard a doorbell. So you can also put in the section details, the make, model, serial number, any other information that you want. But note that Builder doesn't care about section details. It's not part of the algorithms. Builder will do the same calculations whether there's a section detail in there or not. It's more for information to make sure you've got that right piece of equipment. If you've got 10 panel boards and each one has a different serial number, it can identify exactly which ones they are, and that's usually a good place to use that. So it's just for information. A lot of agencies like to have that in there. So if you want that in the scope, or if you want that in the scope, make sure it's in there. Or if you're an assessor and the scope requires it, make sure you're collecting those section details. All right, I showed a portion of a catalog of where we had the different units of measure. So here's a little bit wider view of a catalog, because we get asked this a lot about the costs. Like, how often is Builder updated? How often are the costs updated? And the answer is, it's usually not. Costs are usually not updated. Now, the Gordian folks, wherever Joe is, would love to talk to you about updating your costs. But absent any updates into Builder, Builder just stores that cost information from when it was entered in. So if you look at the baseline cost year, second to the right column, most of them are from 2011, and this is from an actual catalog. I ran this not too long ago. There's costs in there from 2011, pretty long ago. There's a couple of them there from 2014, so that means that those were either edited or added in 2014. But what Builder does is puts a multiplier, an inflation multiplier, on those years, and you could set that multiplier because it's a little bit higher the last couple of years. But you could set that yourselves. So Builder takes that baseline cost year, adds the inflation factor to it to get you the current cost. All right. Another question we get asked a lot, where do you stop when you do your sectioning? Sectioning is just how you section out, how you're putting in your sections into Builder. And if it's not in your scope of work about where to stop and what's included, you've got to answer these questions. Do you want fire extinguishers? Do you want countertops? Do you want hose bibs? I put in light bulbs kind of as a joke in there, but you could do that too. It's more of a maintenance thing, so you usually don't see things like that. Paint. Some agencies love to have paint in there. I think it's more of a maintenance issue than it is a real property asset, but some agencies like to have the paint in there. You've got to have these decisions made. Mostly because when you're putting in your inventory, Builder doesn't know when you're done. Builder's not going to say, hey, you got to add some more, or that's too much. Only your scope of work is going to determine that. And of course, there's no undo button in Builder, so if you put something in, you got to make sure that you're going to have to delete it out. You can't just undo that. Bottom line is to be consistent. It's easier to fix things when sections aren't all over the place, or you've got some fire extinguishers in one building, but not the other building. Plus, if I'm looking at your data and you're all over the place, I'm going to think you're crazy. And be careful, add extra detail looking at your data. All right, the couple of big decisions that you need to make with inventory. One of them is to group or not to group, or to section by condition or not section by condition. I could probably do, well, you'll thank me because I could probably do an entire day just on these two topics. I won't, but it's something that comes up a lot. So let's talk about by grouping. So if we've got 10 exhaust fans, does that mean that you would have 10 sections of a quantity of 1 each? Or would you have 1 section with a quantity of 10? And the answer is depends on what you want. How do you need the metrics for each of those different exhaust fans? Or could they be grouped? Do you want to track each exhaust fan separately for the rest of its life? How complicated do you want the Builder database? When you're scrolling through, do you want to scroll through every single exhaust fan as a separate section? Maybe you do. Exhaust fans are a little bit, they're not the cheapest thing in there, but they're not the most expensive, but it's something you might want to track individually, or you might want to group them. If the individual metrics don't matter to you, then you could group them. Usually exterior, well, let me go back. Interior items are usually sectioned out by floor. Usually. Let's talk about doors versus wiring. Doors are easy to do because doors start and stop on each floor. It's easy to do interior doors by each floor, but Branch wiring doesn't stop. It goes all over the entire building. So that would be something that you would not section by floor, but you might want to do your doors by floor. Elevators versus carpeting. Same thing with carpeting. Carpeting starts and stops on each floor. It's easy to break those out. Elevator, I guess technically an elevator does stop on each floor, but there's not a first floor elevator and a second floor elevator and a third floor elevator. It's one elevator. So if it goes through the entire building, we generally can keep that as one section, but if it's by floor, generally put those by floor. But it's up to you. How do you want the database to look? How do you want to track everything? You've got to maintain this builder database with additional assessments and changes in inventory. Do you want to track that all the time? Personally, I like to see the big ticket items sectioned separately by themselves and then group everything else, because you think about the overall purpose of Builder, which is that long-term planning and budgeting tool. It's not a fix this on Tuesday and fix that on Thursday. You got to think of the long term, and do you want to track that item separately for the rest of its life in Builder? And keep in mind that most of these questions have to do with mechanical equipment. You're not going to group foundations, or you're not going to group domestic water piping. That's all one thing anyway. It's one section anyway. So you don't have to worry about grouping those. It's usually with mechanical equipment. Sectioning by condition is equally fun. Let's say you've got 5 toilets, and 1 is bad, and 1 is fair, and 3 are good. Do you want 3 separate sections for 5 toilets? Is that enough? Are you going to get a value out of that? Maybe you do, but do you want to resection then every time the condition changes? And that's a tough question. Do you even want to consider toilets within your inventory? We worked with one group that he said, I've got $6 billion worth of roofs out here. You think I care about $400 toilets? Okay, so they didn't even have toilets into their inventory. But what if it's 30 windows and 1 is broken? Do you section those? Do you keep those 30 together? Or do you have a section of 1 with the quantity of 29, 1 with the quantity of 1? These are the decisions that need to be made, and need to be made before the assessment team gets out into the field, because the assessors don't know. They're going to follow the guidance. So these are questions that you got to have and got to be put into scopes of work. If you don't already have that in your guidance, a lot of agencies already have a guidance document that lists these things out, and that's great. But if you don't have that, you got to get it. Another sectioning option is the how it's replaced method. So if we're looking at vinyl floors and your vinyl floors have worn out, when you fix that, are you going to chisel out just the bad ones and leave the 20% that are good and then re-tile in around it? You're probably not. You're probably going to take out the entire floor. So in that case, that would be one section, because that's going to be one group, and that's how it's going to be replaced, as one group. But if it's a rooftop unit, and let's say you've got 2 RTUs on your roof, because you are replacing one, would you just replace the other one? Probably not. That's going to be too expensive of an item to do that. So that roughly matches my big ticket item method of keeping the big ticket items as separate sections, because they're usually not replaced at the same time. It's a little tougher when you get to windows and doors. You might replace those separately, but then you might also, if you're going to take it, if you've got a couple doors on this floor and you need to replace them, you might replace all of them so they all match. Or maybe you piece them separately, then they would be separate sections. But you also have to think, what if there's 75, think of this building, it's a hotel. How many interior doors are on the 3rd floor? 100 could be. Do you want 100 separate sections of doors? Probably not, but maybe you do. And if you do, if you want that granularity, then section those out separately. And make sure it's documented. Make sure it's documented so the assessors know to do that. All right, over and under sectioning. Another problem that we see frequently. So let's say that you've got a building with the same ceiling type, it's the same year, so it's got the same life cycle curve. Do you want a section for each room in a building for the ceiling tile? Maybe you want a section for each part of the building, so by the functional area. Maybe you have a section of the ceiling tiles in the entryway, in the hallways, in the offices, in the break room. Or maybe you do that by floor. And again, most agencies will do that by floor, but maybe you want those by floor. Or maybe you just want to do all the ceiling finishes in the entire building. If the ceiling finishes aren't, if you don't need to track them in that level of granularity, you can just have it for the entire building. But how you do section those out is how you will track those items for the rest of its design life. It may be the rest of your design life too, if you're tracking down 75 individual doors every single time you do an assessment. So be careful when you figure out your sectioning. All right, talked about agencies that have some guidance documents. This is a screenshot from the Army Guide, and I love this part of the Army Guide because all the information, almost everything I need to know is in these charts. So in this case, we're talking about boilers, D302001. First column is after the component type is whether it's in scope or not. That's great. If I'm an assessor, I don't even have to guess. I'm already told that just the general hot water electric boiler is out of scope, and the other ones are in. Then it asks about the section details if they're required. Easy enough. Okay, I've got a yes. I know I've got to collect the section details. I've got to also take an inventory picture. I don't have to put in an inventory comment. Neither of those I can group because it's a boiler, it's a big ticket item, so that's not something that we're going to group together. If there's two of them, it's not going to be one section with a quantity 2, it's going to be 2 sections with a quantity of 1. I'm not allowed to do an age-based inspection. We'll get to inspections later on this morning. And that also tells me what its design life is and what the unit of measure is. Super helpful to have this kind of information out in the field if you're an assessor. Especially in this format. It's easy to look at, it's easy to take into the field with you, and easy to understand. All right, quiz time. I don't have an instant poll on this one. If I'm doing sectioning on this, Kurt's back there grinning because he loves this photo because I've used this for years. So if you've had training with me before, you know the answer to this. Okay, so ignoring the buildings on the outside, let's just focus on that main center building. What's the minimum number of sections that roof, and we're talking about the roof, what's the minimum number of sections that roof could be? I hear a 3, I hear a 4, I see a 5. Wow, now I'm doing auction. Instead of doing the horse race thing, I'm doing auction now. Okay, so minimum of 3. I heard a 1. That's what I wanted to hear. It could be 1, it could be 1 section. Got another 1 over here. So what if that roof was the same material and the same year throughout? It's 1 section. Maybe they just painted part of the roof. I don't know why you go in and paint just part of a roof, but you could. So that could be 1 section. I think logically it's probably 3, because it appears to be that might be the original one on the left side, and maybe they added, and then they added 2 more bays onto that. But it could be 5. Maybe each one of those bays has a separate year, and if it has a separate year, it's got a separate life cycle curve, so it needs to be a separate section. All right. Summary of inventory and sectioning. Sectioning is important because it sets the builder table. Everything goes off of how you section your building. It's going to be how you track all your inventory, it's how you're going to rate things, and it's how your work plan is going to look like. Unfortunately, Builder doesn't let you click and drag sections over into different areas. So if you screw up, again, no undo button. Be careful. I've seen entire buildings worth of inventory put into the wrong building. And you can't just group them and drag them over to the other one. It's got to be fixed manually. And the other thing is to be consistent. Be consistent with the sectioning. Consistency is going to be the theme of the day for inventory and inspections. It's just easier to fix things when they are consistent, and it's easier to know where training is needed, because if you're all over the place, then you need some more training. So always be consistent on inventory and with inspections. All right, let's take it's a little bit early, but let's take a break. And we'll go into assessments, inspections. So it's 9:20. Were we scheduled for 15 minutes on this? I think it was 9:35. The room saying, okay, let's go, and I've got the other half saying, give us a couple more minutes. Thank you, Richard. Down a little bit? Okay. Okay. Am I popping the mic? And the people online are complaining. Okay. Yes, sir. All right, now what he says, it's okay. All right, for the fourth time, we'll start back up. I can whistle really loud. I mean, I can damage eardrums. All right, coming back. One thing I neglected to do, there's a whistle, thank you. I forgot to open up for questions on inventory. So if you have any questions about the inventory part, please, come on up. If you're with us here, come on up to the mic, and if you're online, then Paul TL will relay any questions to us. We got a question over here. Oh, mic up.
Good morning. Check, 1, 2. Can you hear it? Okay. Hi, I'm Paul Dinkle with Maximus. I support the Intel community. I had a question on the false versus true for estimated dates. One of our sub-elements entered most, if not all, of their data using true instead of false against our suggestion. But if you don't enter inspections, does that have any impact at all to how builder calculates the condition?
So everything is age-based and not an inspection?
Correct.
Yeah, then it wouldn't matter, because builder would have no reference point on which to change that rating. It would just follow the curve naturally.
Yeah, we figured as much, and they're going to be probably adjusting that as when they reload data over the summer, but I just wanted to confirm that it wasn't impacting that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so if there's no inspection, it's all age-based, then hitting that estimated box would not change the way builder calculates things, because it's not coming off an inspection. Any other questions in the room? I know I thought we had at least one online.
So online, we've got a comment saying that while Paul isn't advocating for a contractor-performed assessments, there is no way we could effectively perform this in-house.
Okay, so not a question, but so is that from a government agency that they can't do it in-house?
I'm not sure. We've got it listed as an anonymous question, so I don't know who requested this one.
Yeah, so a government agency, then it would be important to contract out the assessments to the assessment team. Yeah. Got a lot of people here who would like a phone call. Any other questions? Hang on, Mike's coming up. The first question was if there is no inspection, everything was done on an age-based inspection, would the estimated box, would it affect anything the builder does? And that would be a no, because it's not an inspection, so it's just going to naturally go on that life cycle curve. It doesn't have to do any adjusting.
So
All right.
if we find out what agency they're from, like for us, and I know that Army's doing the same thing, I think John's doing the same with Navy, but Air Force, we have facility condition assessment contracts right now with a bunch of folks that are actually in this room, so we can help them. They can get a hold of AFCEC if they're with Air Force. I'd say John can get them, and Army can get them, but we have those contracts available. Over.
Yeah, I don't know if that person wants to identify who they are with. They may get bombarded with phone calls. All right, another question here.
Hi, John Means out of the Washington, D.C. airports. Question is, on the CRVs, does builder share the CRVs for specific industries? And is there any learning that takes place over time to make those CRVs more accurate and up to date?
So you're talking about a replacement value that's in builder?
Replacement values, yes.
And is it shared with any other?
Well, one of the things I noticed when I was in construction is that we would use construction costs for one job to give us intelligence for the next job. And I was just wondering if you guys do the same thing. And for builder, once you establish pricing and prove out that pricing.
Yes, I mean, Searle would have that information, and it would be used for other other instances of builder unless you altered that catalog, either on your own or talk to the Gordian people and have them come in and adjust costs.
So it's pretty independent per job.
It can be, but if it's builder, it's going to have the whatever Searle has for the catalog would be shared amongst other builder instances unless you had a separate one yourself. So it is customizable.
Okay.
Not quite sure that answers your question, but
Thank you.
oh, another one from online.
So to go back to the original question, it was USMC that was identified.
It was what?
USMC.
MC? Marine Corps?
Yep.
Okay.
And then further, we've got another one. Great info that AFCEC has contracts. Thank you. What is that gentleman's name from AFCEC? Bill Hawkins? Lovely. Next, we have, you mentioned capturing elevators in inventory. Are you aware that USAF does not mandate including elevators in their inventory? Also, what are your thoughts about that?
I was not aware of that. It's a big ticket item. I would include elevators. I would want to know. That's a pretty important asset to a building. I would want them in there. All right. Any other questions? All right. Let's carry on. Let's talk about field assessments. All right, first things about preparing for a field assessment. We talked about the inventory earlier. Do you preload your inventory into Builder so that you can have the inventory available to you when you're in the field? Or do you want to do that in the field? There's really no right or wrong answer on that. That one project where I was on the other side, was on the assessment side of it, we preloaded all the inventory. We spent all that time doing all those takeoffs and getting the quantities right. And of course, the drawings were probably about 50% accurate. So I was getting phone calls from the guys in the field going, Paul, I hate you. You gave me terrible inventory. So that is a drawback of preloading inventory. But if you've got good drawings and you can get the inventory in, I like having the inventory in there. It's great if the inventory is already set when you're in the field, because you can just walk around, verify everything is there, that it's accurate, and rate it. Super easy. You don't have to stand there and try to figure out what it is and get the inventory and do the sectioning and all that stuff. So if you can do that at your desktop before you get out in the field, highly recommended, but it's got to be accurate. Some assessors don't like deleting things and changing things. They'd rather put it in themselves. So it's really a personal preference on that. Super important to know the scope of work. I showed that clip from the Army Guide. The Army Guide is super detailed on what that scope of work is. There's other agencies that have other documentation, but there's some agencies that don't have any documentation, and you got to figure that out within the scope. So whatever that scope is, you got to know what it is, and bring it with you in the field. I always like to bring a copy of the catalog that I'm working with. That's all the sections that are available in Builder, or at least a cheat sheet. And I've got a story time with that one too. So I was out in the field, and occasionally I like to volunteer to do field work because I like to keep my chops up. And I was out at a site, and I was doing the architectural on this one building, and it was late in the day. I finished up. Actually, even before that, I was going up onto the roof. The facility manager, it was the end of the day, and he's like, dude, just lock up when you're done. I'm out of here. So he leaves. I get down on the roof. I come back down. I lock everything up. I go into my rental car, and I check, make sure I've got everything done, and I forgot the roof hatch. And I forgot that was my responsibility. I'm like, oh, okay, dummy. Now I can't get back up on that roof that day. So I had to go track down that facility manager the next day, who of course wasn't available in the morning. So I had to wait till the afternoon, get him to come let me in, and it cost me about a half a day's work because I left one thing out. And per that scope, I had to take a picture of the roof hatch. I couldn't even fake it. It's like, okay, how can I fake this? It's like, yeah, I saw the roof hatch. Oh, it was a green minus, like everybody picks when they don't know what to do. couldn't do that. I was required to take a picture, so I had to go up there and take a picture of the roof hatch and put a condition rating on it. Moral of the story is, bring a cheat sheet or a catalog and look at those, even if it's not by section, if you're just looking at the components. Yes, I got that. Yes, I got that. Didn't get that. Oop, let me go back and get that. Also important to calibrate with your teammates, especially if it's a new group, and that is, maybe doing a mock assessment of your own office, or maybe just showing some pictures. We're going to do some mock assessments or pictures here coming up a little bit later this morning. But again, super important to get that consistency. So we want to make sure that an Amber Plus by one assessor is an Amber Plus from another assessor. So always want to make sure that everybody is trained and everybody is calibrated to get that consistent rating. You also want to coordinate with the main contact person, the POC, and that's to make sure that they've got the schedule of when you're going to be out there, arranging for the keys, arranging escorts. Be careful arranging escorts. A couple years ago, I was at the Nevada nuclear test site where we had to have escorts, and my wife overhears me arranging my Las Vegas escorts. That took some explaining, so be careful on arranging your escorts. But escorts are vitally important because sometimes, depending on the building you're in, you may not be allowed to run around alone. It's also common that someone will say, oh yeah, you got to have an escort, and the escort gets tired of watching you stand there and looking at a piece of equipment for 20 minutes, and they say, here's the keys, go off on your own. But depending on the security of the building, you may have to have an escort just to go to the bathroom. So always important to make sure you've got to know if you need them and if you got them arranged. Also need to arrange with the contact the access. Can you get on the roof? Do you need a key? Can you get into the janitor closet? Can you get in the mechanical rooms? Wherever you need to go, do you have that access at least already planned? There's also some places that have photo restrictions. Some places have device restrictions, so you can't even bring in a tablet or anything, but there's also other places where you just can't take a photo, or maybe it's just a photo in a certain room. But make sure you have that. Once we get on site, I always like to have a meeting with the local staff, usually the facility manager of that building, and we interview them. Does the roof leak? When was the last time the roof was replaced? Because that's a vital asset. You want to make sure you have that date right for your life cycle curve. And if it's not raining on the day you're there, you got to ask if the roof leaks, because you can't always tell. Sometimes you can see a ceiling tile, but that could be from any number of issues, not necessarily a roof leak. Always ask for where's the problem children in your building? Is there a piece of equipment that has had a service call every 6 months for the last 3 years? Need to know that because you can downgrade the rating for that, and that's something that you wouldn't know on the day you're there. I also like to plan out my route, and that would be not only within all the buildings that we're looking at, but also within each building. So I always try to tackle the largest, most complicated building on day one. I'm the freshest, I have the freshest eyes. I want to get the worst building out of the way. So I always try to get that worst one, work my way down to the guard shack at the end of the day. It's Friday. It's like, well, we can do a guard shack and do that easy. You don't have to think that hard on that. You also got to think about the weather. If it's in Orlando and it's the summer, I'm going to do the roof at 4 o'clock in the morning before it gets 12,000 degrees up there. Or if it's cold, I want to do the roof in the afternoon when it's a little bit warmer. So think about that as well. There's also the route within the building. Some people like to start on the exterior and do a lap around and do the exterior. Some like to start on the roof and work their way down. Some like to start on the first floor and work their way up. No right or wrong answer. It's going to be whatever works for you, but have that plan so you're not just walking in the door and going, what should I do? have a plan. To the mic, we have a question.
Hello. I had a question about photo restrictions. So I've worked at one of the ammunition plants, and one of the things when you take pictures there, they have to review your pictures before you take them off. Have you had that situation before?
Oh yeah. In certain areas, we were not allowed to, we had to have digital cameras. We couldn't do the devices so that you could have the memory card, and they would get reviewed every day. At the end of the day, we turned them in, and then in the morning, we get them back.
Yeah, that's exactly what we had at the place I was at, so thank you. And I'm Sheila Petrasa with Searle. I have not on the SMS side, so I'm learning more. Thank you.
Awesome, welcome. But yeah, we've also had tablets where they want to scroll through and look at the photos before, if you can't have the memory chip. Any other questions? All right, what to bring? Obviously, you're going to bring your primary collection method if that's a tablet, if it's paper and pencil, if it's a floor plan, whatever it might be. You're going to bring that, and then you're also going to bring a backup. If I'm doing an assessment on a tablet, I've got paper and pencil in my backpack, just in case. You know, a battery might fail, or it gets rained on and fails, whatever reason. I always have a backup for doing an assessment. I always want to bring a floor plan, not only to help me orient myself within the building, but I might need it for additional notes. If I can't get a floor plan, I will take a picture of the emergency exit plan that's usually posted in a building, and then I can refer to it on my phone. So I always, you know, especially on the larger buildings, you always want to know where you are within the building. That helps orient you. I like wearing a safety vest out when I'm in the field, not only because I want to make sure people see me and know that I'm possibly supposed to be on that roof. I also found out you can get into a lot of areas with just wearing a safety vest. It's like, oh, this guy's got a tablet and a safety vest. Let's let him right on in. Sweet. All right. Okay. I'll take that. I also always wear a bump cap, and I actually have a Digon one here. Plastic. This may come as a shock to you, but I occasionally hit my head. For those of you who are online that can't tell, I'm a little bit taller than most people, 5'19", so I tend to hit my head in a couple areas. So highly recommend. I wear this in the field all the time. It is great because I hit my head all the time. I do actually have a couple of these at the front, and if you're super nice to me and you want a Digon bump cap, talk to Paul. Come see me. I always bring a backpack because I've got all kinds of stuff in there, the catalog, extra batteries, and all the stuff that you might need, so always bring a backpack. And then, of course, water, sunscreen, you know, whatever you might, any medications, things like that. It's standing on a roof when it's really hot, or a mechanical room for a couple hours, and you get dehydrated. And it's not great when you're walking around doing 10,000 steps, doing an assessment, and you want to stay hydrated. So bring anything that you need to get through the day. All right, when you're on site, now you may have your own dress code within your company. If I'm in charge of you and you're doing an assessment, you're not wearing shorts, you're not wearing jeans, you're going to wear a collared shirt. And we like to make sure that we look professional. Obviously, you're not going to wear something that's too loose or have lanyards that can get caught in equipment. Closed-toed shoes, safety shoes if you've got them, but at least closed-toed shoes. Always want to make sure that someone knows where you are. You don't want to get stuck on a roof and have the facility manager leave for the day and lock you out and you can't get down. or you're in a mechanical room somewhere and all of a sudden you're missing and nobody knows you're missing. So we always want to make sure somebody knows where you are. Walking around while being distracted, this drives me nuts. Oh my God, there's so many times where I see assessors on the roof, and this is pretty good because I'm in a precarious situation right here up on this riser, and you know, doing this or on the phone, and you're on a roof, and there's no parapet, and it just drives me nuts. I just want to scream when I see assessors do that. So don't be distracted when you're walking around, especially on a roof or in a mechanical room. Don't stick your hands into hidden areas. Don't poke around to see you in a hole if it's wet. Don't reach around corners. There's critters and snakes and things that you don't want your, what's that? Bats. I thought you said cats. It's like, oh, you could have a cat. Okay, you can run into bats. But just be careful about where things are. Walking around doing the foundation, and you got hedges around there, and you're kicking around stuff. There's snakes and stuff that you don't want to run into. So always be careful. Look out for wildlife. Don't go into restricted areas, and that usually means like a crawl space, some other area. Those are almost always have signage. Don't go into those to do an assessment. If that area is part of the responsibility of your scope of work, take a look at the surrounding area and assume the conditions are the same inside the area that you can't get into. But don't go crawling around into crawl spaces and things like that. Also, don't try to fix anything. We see so many things in the field of cardboard boxes in front of a panel board, something that shouldn't happen. And naturally you'd want to go, oh, if I just slide this over, we'll be safer. Don't fix it, because you could screw something else up. If something is hanging loose, don't try to push it in, because you could just make it worse. If something is really bad, so if you see a life safety issue, it depends on what it is. If it's as bad as if something is arcing next to an acetylene tank, get out of there. Run. But if it's something loose, you might have a diffuser that's loose or something, and it could fall, but it's probably not going to fall that second that you're there. Make sure you notify your the facility manager or your escort or whoever you have. Make sure that they know about it, take a picture of it, document it. But if it's something that's really bad, call 911 and get out of there. I always make sure that assessors have stop work authority. So if there's something that is not safe, they've got the authority to say, nope, I'm either not going to go into that area, or it's not safe for somebody else, or whatever it may be. Please give your assessors the authority to stop work. And then communicate with the other assessors. And this happens a lot. If you're doing the foundation and you see some settling with the foundation and it's actually cracking the exterior wall, but you're not responsible for the exterior wall, make sure the assessor that is responsible for the exterior wall knows about it. That could be the problem. We worked in a building one time with the fire protection pipes were leaking, and it was damaging the finishes. So we had to make sure that, and that was completely different disciplines from doing the fire versus the interior finishes. So I made sure that the assessment team that was doing the interior finishes notified the mechanical guy to take a look. Hey, we got a leak coming from somewhere. It's not the roof. We're on the first floor of a 4-story building. It's either a domestic water, wastewater, or fire protection. Turned out to be fire protection. But that person that's doing the interior finishes needs to let that other assessor know that there's a problem so that they can take a look at it. And then the last one, because it's so bad on that one time when I was on that roof and I had to go back, don't leave without checking your list. I always want to make sure you do that. All right. Let's go into direct ratings. As the name indicates, it's the most direct way to a condition index. And it's divided up into green, amber, or red. Don't call it yellow, it is amber. So the color would usually come first when you're doing an assessment. Pick that color, and then you pick the severity within that color, and that's the plus, mid, or minus. And one of the things that when I was first learning Builder, that it took me a while to get this through my head of, there's 9 choices. It's not a range, even though the scale kind of looks like a range. It is 9 choices. And each choice corresponds to a specific CI. Because you could look in Builder, and Builder could degrade let's say you had a Amber Plus, 79. In a couple of years, that 79 could degrade down to a 73. So you would see a 73 in Builder, and you think, oh, okay, I can give something a 73. You can't give something a 73. It's either going to be an Amber Plus at a 79 or an Amber at 71. You can't, even if you're looking at something, go, well, it's not really quite an Amber Plus, or it's not an Amber, you can't take that midpoint. You're going to pick one, and that CI comes along with that color code. What you pick is what you get in Builder, and the exception on that is that when we're talking about the estimated box, or if the item is brand new and you give it a low rating, or if it's very old and well past its design life and you give it a high rating, that's when Builder says, nope, I don't trust you, I don't believe it, and it'll make that adjustment. Otherwise, what you pick is what you get. You pick that red plus, and a 50 is going to get put into Builder. And then from that point on, the very next day, that night, Builder's going to start degrading. So that 50 that you put in today, tomorrow is going to be a 49.999999999, and the next day it's going to be a 49.9999998, and so on. So it'll start degrading the very next day. All right, let's look at some definitions. There is no official definition for greens and ambers and reds. Every agency can and usually do have their own set of definitions. Thank you. Hopefully that will help. Thank you so much. These ones that we chose for this example, I'm not even sure which agency they came from. I might have stolen them from some agency. I might have made these up. I'm not quite sure. But every agency can and often do have their own definitions of what a green, an amber, and a red is. So let's take a look at these. So for this particular, let's just call this an agency. A green plus, free from observable or known degradation. And that's 100. And as I showed you on the life cycle curve, 100 is generally out of the box new. Out of the box new is relative. 2 years on a 125-year foundation is pretty much out of the box new. 2 years on a 7-year carpet tile is not brand new. So there is some relativity to consider on what's out of the box new. Mid-green, normal wear requiring normal preventative maintenance. So not something that has to be necessarily fixed, but it just needs to track with its normal preventative maintenance. That's a mid-green, and that's a 95. A green minus, normal degradation requiring corrective maintenance. So now we're into corrective maintenance, but it's just normal degradation. And that gives us an 88. All right, let's go to the ambers. Amber plus, now we're into minor degradation requiring corrective maintenance. So before we had normal wear requiring preventive maintenance, normal degradation requiring corrective maintenance. Now we're stepping down to minor degradation requiring corrective maintenance. That's an amber plus, and that would give you an 80. We drop down another one to amber. Moderate degradation requiring corrective repair. So now we've gone from minor to moderate, and that gives us a 71. We drop down another one to amber minus, and now we're at significant degradation requiring moderate repair. So we've gone from corrective repair to moderate repair, and that gives us a 61. And the reds, red plus, extensive degradation requiring major repair. So now we're getting beyond the corrective repair, we're into major repair. And the mid-reds, severe degradation requiring major rehab. So we step down from major repair to major rehab, and that gives us a 30. Note that that's where we've actually hit past the design life end of 40. So that CI of 40, which is the end of the design life, we've now crossed that line at mid-red, because that's going to be a 30. Red minus, complete degradation requiring full replacement. And you see, that doesn't even get us a 0. So even that's a 10. So there's still a little bit left in there. But we are recommending that that would be a full replacement on that, if you're into the red minus. Microphone, Joe. Guys, how come we didn't set up a microphone by Joe? Why did we not do that? I don't know. Here comes Paultiel.
Thank you. So, pardon me. Could you back up the slide a minute, Paul? So how would you define the difference between a 10 and a 0?
Well, I'm just going to redo the definitions that are on there, Joe.
No, but so you said there's a little bit of, between a 10 and a 0, there's a little bit left, but yet it's requiring full replacement. So
because you can't give it a 0.
Okay.
So the lowest is 10. Now, a builder may take that and degrade it down towards a 0. And from what we were told, an item will never get to 0. There will always be a fraction there. It never actually gets to 0. So I don't know if I can give a definition of something that between 10 and 0. I mean, that would be the lowest you could go, would be a 10 on the red minus, and that would be complete replacement.
So practically speaking, it is.
Yeah, and Joe said practically speaking 10 is a 0. And yeah, you could think of it that way. It's at the bottom. But it just, that curve is just gonna, literally, it's just gonna keep on going forever and ever and ever until it gets replaced. It will never actually hit 0.
So builder doesn't.
Mic, please. And apparently, we've got one that works. Oh, we got, dang it. Hang on.
1, 2.
There we go.
So it doesn't decipher between 10 and 0 on builder. It's still the same as far as how it scores it out on the CI.
Well, builder will take that 10 and then start degrading from that point. So it is going to start going down from a 10, but at that point on that day when you gave that inspection of a red minus, it goes in at a 10. Does that help? Anything else? All right. Paul Tail, anything online? All right, we're good to go. Another way to look at the green, amber, and red is the risk of failure. And sometimes, you know, I look at this as it's kind of the bottom line. Really, what we're assessing is the risk of failure. When is this going to fail? So if we look at, if it's got a low risk of failure, you're probably going to be in the greens. A medium risk of failure would be in the ambers, and a high risk of failure would be in the reds. You can also look at it as greens would be do nothing. Ambers would be repair, and reds would be replace. Generally speaking, there's a little bit more to it than that, but generally speaking, that generally fits. And if you can kind of master just this concept, you're better off than 80% of the assessors already out there. And it should be that when you see something green, it should be obvious. You walk right up to it, yep, that's going to be a green. I just have to figure out if it's going to be a plus, mid, or a minus. You walk up to something red, and that should generally be obvious. You should go, yep, that's a red. And then everything else is an amber. So that's a simple way of breaking that down. So either look at it from the perspective of there's no work to be done on it, that's the do nothing, then the greens, repair in the ambers, replace in the reds, or look at it from the risk of failure. But let's go even further on that. You can also look at it from a section's primary and secondary functions. So the primary function of a door, keep stuff in, keep stuff out. I think that's probably a good definition of what a door is supposed to do for its primary function. Secondary function would be, does it squeak? Does it lock? Does it look good? It's probably not something else out there, but that's probably a pretty good of what a secondary function of a door would be. So if that's the case, look at the loss of the primary function to get into the green, amber, just to get the color scale. If there's no loss of that primary function, you're probably going to be in the greens. If you have a partial loss of that primary function, you're probably going to be in the ambers. And if there's a significant loss of that primary function, you'll be in the reds. Okay, easy enough. The harder part's dialing in the pluses and mids and minuses, but that's where the secondary function comes in. So if you've got a minimal loss of that secondary function for the doors, the locking, it's got to open and close, not squeak, it's got to look good, then you're going to be in the pluses, no matter what color band you're in. If it's just a moderate loss of that secondary function, then you'll be in the mids, and if there's a significant loss of that secondary function, you'll be in the minuses. Are there exceptions? Of course there are. What would Builder be without exceptions? It's usually helpful to consider the cost to fix an item. I was monitoring an assessment team, and we had just gotten out of training, and we turned them loose, and they're inside this building, and there's a drinking fountain, and the handle was missing. It was inoperable. And I just told them for a couple of hours before that, when it's inoperable, it's going to be in the reds. But if it can be fixed with a $100 fix, I would put it in the ambers. So even though it was inoperable, it doesn't automatically become a red. So it does help to consider the cost to fix something, and you might want to change that assessment based on that. For age, I like to consider age in my assessments. Some agencies don't like it, and it'll be in the scope of work. Don't worry about the age of an item. We just care about what the condition is today when we're on site. I like to consider age because it increases that risk of failure. So unless it's specifically outlawed within your scope, I would consider age when doing an assessment. Also consider the outside factors, and by those I mean like when you're doing the interview with the facility manager and he says this piece of equipment is a problem, you would definitely want to, I would definitely want to drop that rating for that item because of that knowledge. Worked with an agency, and oh boy, I hope they're not online. Maybe I should be, I'll be careful how I say this. They warned us before we went on site that we should downgrade all the mechanical equipment because they don't do maintenance. So I'm not going to further comment on that, but so every piece of equipment, we dropped it down a notch. Paul Teal's got his hand up from online. I hope that guy's not commenting right now.
So it says, this is a Manning question. I am on an Air Force base with over 770 plus facilities with over 70,000 plus assets. How many personnel should be assessors and or updating data quality?
Ooh. Could I pass on that question? Kurt, what'd you say? Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Kurt said call us. Oh. It's Paul Teal, not me.
Okay, so if he's an Air Force person, he needs to be contacting AFCEC. Bill Hawkins is in the local book, and we can help tell him what's going on. But there's a lot of people in this room right now that we're trying to connect our CMMS to ESMS, so that kind of helps that, take that off of there. We hear the same complaint every time we talk to bases, every MedCom we go. I mean, you guys hear it as well. So, but he can, if he's with the Air Force, he can contact me.
Okay. And like Kurt said, you can call us too.
Hi, I'm Melissa from Fort Cavazos. Just to give you an idea, we've been in the reassessment phase since 2018, and I have a team of 10. I got to eat. Okay,
there you go.
Hi, guys. I'm from Fort Cavazos. I'm Melissa. I'm our SMS Builder ISR team lead. Just to give you an idea, we do over 1,000 inspections every year between Builder and ISR. I have a team of 10, and that's roughly anywhere from 15 to 2 million square feet every other year. Just to give you an idea of what you could be working with.
Great, thank you. Paul Teal, keep those mics up.
Hi, thank you. I was just kind of going back to your example with the broken water fountain. Say it was just installed the day prior. It's not an estimated install date, and you notice that it's not operable, so you gave it like an amber like you mentioned before. Would Builder then just greatly, since it's not an estimated install date, would it just greatly reduce the reduction of CI at that point?
So it's new and it's rated in the ambers?
Just going back to your example, say the first person used it broke the handle off of it, and you come along and inspect it, and you give it that amber rating. Given that it was just installed, does Builder just greatly reduce the curve in which the degradation would occur?
Actually, if it was brand new, Builder would probably bring it up.
Okay.
Because it doesn't believe that something that new would be that bad.
So it has, okay, I didn't realize it has the option to go back up. Okay, thank you.
And that's when I would put an estimated on it to say, hey, Builder, trust my rating on it. Don't go off of your curve. Trust me that this one-day-old item has a problem. Another one coming in.
Hi there. Hello? Yep. We're SMEs on the plant maintenance side for GFIPS, Army. So we're getting all the plant maintenance records, all the equipment records, and managing all the maintenance right now through GFIPS, which is the Army requirement. So when you're talking about doing assessments, is there ever a consideration as to this item is getting preventative maintenance? Do you check any records or anything like that? And does that affect the rating in any way?
To do a complete job, you would check all that information. If it's just a preventative maintenance issue, then I wouldn't consider it, because everything's going to have some kind of a PM to it. When I do an interview, I just want to know where's the bad stuff, and is it repeated over and over. You know, if it's just one call and it gets fixed, I don't care. But it's that over and over service call to fix something. Then I would downgrade it. Oh, got another one from online.
So another online.
Oh.
Are there new assessment technologies, i.e. drones, AI, that are helping increase the square foot coverage during the assessment process?
Yes. If we know of a company that has already used drones to do roof assessments, especially on like high-rise buildings or areas that are hard to get to. We are also going to do a segment tomorrow, Kurt? Tomorrow, on doing some AI and robotics and what the future might be to do some of that stuff, because we think it's going to go that direction, and anything that can help an assessor out, and if it's tech, then we love it. So that's definitely going to be the way it happens. But yeah, the drone thing is happening more and more. Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Faith Eckford-Prosser from CE Miami. We're wondering if there's like an area contingency factor, because obviously an HVAC in the Southeast is gonna take a lot more use than an HVAC in like Northern California.
We get asked that a lot, so good question. The best way around that is, at least from my perspective, frequent inspections. That will take care of it, because there's more to it than just the location of how something could degrade. I mean, obviously, something that's on a coast is going to be different than something that's in the middle of Kansas. But the maintenance is just as important, and maybe more important of a factor. So I think a more frequent inspection schedule will take care of that, because if it's degrading faster because it's got the salt water on it, you're going to see it in that curve, and it's going to downgrade faster, rather than just a blanket, it's on the coast, so it's going to go faster here. Because the maintenance could override a lot of that, or it's less used, or it's on the north side of the building and it doesn't get hit by sun.
Thank you.
All right, seeing anything else? Got a thumbs up from back. Last thing on here is sampling. So that would be the exception of putting a direct rating on something. Maybe you can't get to that room, or maybe it's a VAV. Maybe you've got 100 VAVs in your ceiling and you can only see one of them. In that case, I would use sampling to determine my rating. I can see what the conditions are to similar areas, and I'm going to kind of project that rating onto the areas that I can't get into. You know, even if it's just one room, you can't get it. Maybe it's a skiff, and you can't get it. They're not going to get an assessor inside of a skiff. I would look at the walls and the finishes on the nearby rooms and base my inspection on that. All right, the thought process. I like to get that color in first, get the green, the amber, or the red in first. And when in doubt, if you don't consider any of that, the risk of failure or the primary function, secondary function, think about that. Green is no work needed, amber is repairs needed, and red is replacement is needed. Then you dial in that severity of the plus and the mids and the minuses. Caution you to don't rate a cover. Some agencies require a direct rating on everything. I'm not a big fan of it. I love age-based ratings, and we'll get to age-based here in a second, because I can't see what's inside of a lot of stuff, and I don't want to rate a cover. I've got a story for that too. Did a training of a company, and in the afternoon of the training, we went around their building and did a mock assessment. So we're all walking around with tablets, and I just walk around and just grab something and point and say, okay, this wall, do that, and then see how they did. We went down into the fire room, and by the maintenance office, and there was a fire pump, and I said, okay, let's do the fire pump. And it's shiny, clean, you could eat off of this fire pump. It was beautiful. And everybody's like, oh, it's a green plus, and there was a debate. Is it a green, is it a green plus? The maintenance guy was right there, and I stuck my head around the corner, and I'm like, hey, how old's that fire pump? And he said, it's original to the building, it's like 35 years old. We painted it 2 weeks ago. So if there's a scope of work that says you must provide a direct rating, you would get a green or a green plus on a 35-year-old fire pump, which is not a good idea. So I would age base that. If I had the authority to do so in my scope of work, I would do that. You know, how do you rate a water heater? I mean, you can see if something is leaked, you can look for rust, but you don't know if there's occlusion on the inside. What's going on the inside of a chiller, inside of a boiler? You have no idea. So we really caution you to not rate a cover. Go ahead and let it age base, and we'll get to that in a second. When I do a training of an assessment team, I always say we need to be within one level. So we have those 9 different levels of a direct rating. If I say something is a mid-amber, I want you to say it's either an amber plus, mid-amber, or amber minus, one level different. If I say something is a mid-green and you say it's a mid-red, one of us is wrong. And we got to go back to training. So I like to have that one-step difference to make sure that that's that part of that calibration and the consistency. All right, condition ratings and work plans. One thing I wanted to show here was, this is a roof drain from 2012, and in 2021, it was given a red plus, so it's a 50, where it was what it was given. It has since degraded down to a 49, but what I wanted to show you is on the right, at the bottom of the right, that's the maximum remaining service life, the RSL, remaining service life for replacement. So that is in the work configurations where you set the triggers for when work should happen. This is the result of those work configurations. So this agency set up a remaining service life. It has to have 2 years left of remaining service life to be replaced. So even though this rating was a 50, which is a red plus, it's not going to be replaced, because if you look at under age, kind of on the left side, right under age, there's RSL, there's 4 years left of remaining service life. So it's still got 2 more years, even though this assessor gave it a red plus, and maybe even thought that that assessor was recommending a replacement, an immediate replacement. It's not going to go for 2 more years, because where this agency set their trigger for work. So the agency might want to either reevaluate where they set the trigger and put that at a higher remaining service life so it would hit. Or as an assessor, if you really think that something should be replaced, maybe you don't go to a red plus, because that gives you a 50, which is above the 40, which is the end of the design life. So something to consider as an assessor. If you really think it should be replaced, it may not necessarily be because of where the agency has set that trigger point for the work for that item. All right, so there are some disadvantages to a direct rating. It is super general because we've only given it, we've got 9 things to choose from. That's not a lot of granularity on giving something a rating, just 9 points, 9 data points. There's no record of what is wrong with it. We just know that it's an amber. We just know it's a red. But what's wrong with it, we don't know. Let's take a look at a work plan. All right, so here's a sample of a real work plan. And we've got a list of things that, second column from the right, the work type. So we have a variety of things that builder recommends to be replaced and to be repaired, and how much it thinks it might cost. So the first one, replace is pretty easy. It just gets replaced. But let's take a look at that second one, the first, repair. If I told you to go, so we got a water closet from 2000. If I said, go repair that water closet, what would you say to me? You'd say, what's wrong with it? What am I repairing? Is it clogged? Is it stained? Is the handle broke? Does it flush? I don't know. Builder doesn't know. So if the assessor doesn't tell builder, the builder's not going to know. So everything on there is a little bit vague on what that repair would be. So to combat that, most agencies require an inspection comment. And in that comment are what's called distresses. And this is a list of kind of the common standard distresses that you can add into an inspection comment. You're not bound to these. You can actually add your own distresses, but these are the ones that are commonly used in builder instances. I won't go through each and every one of these, but some of them are important to look at because they're not intuitive. Like the third one down, broken. If a water heater doesn't work, you might say it's broken, but that's not what this means. So broken in this case means it's split into 2 or more pieces. So you wouldn't say that that water heater is broken unless it was split into 2 or more pieces, which would be interesting for a water heater. But in most cases, that would be probably damaged if it was hit by a forklift, or deteriorated, which is the natural degradation of that water heater. The other one would be a hole is not necessarily a hole from a puncture from that forklift. A hole is supposed to be an intended purpose. So if it was drilled into a wall for conduit and then it was taken out and the hole's still there, that would be a hole. If it was punctured by that forklift, it would not be a hole. Another one I want to point out is the moisture, debris, mold. I just said the M word. Even though mold is in that definition, I would never, ever, 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 ever put mold into an inspection comment. Even if I had a report that says this is mold and had an arrow pointing to it, I still wouldn't put it in. I don't want that liability. I would never say something is asbestos. I would never say anything I might say suspected, but I would rather say organic growth. So, true story. Not kidding about that. If something is growing and it's obviously mold, I am not going to say mold. I'm going to say it's organic growth. It's for someone else to determine if that really is mold, because your name is on that inspection. And if you say it's mold and it's not, or if you don't say it is and it is, you don't want that liability. The inspection comment, the format of the inspection comment will also depend on your scope of work. The Army Guide, for example, has a very specific format for these comments. You have to have your name and your company and the date, and then the list of distresses, and then a sentence describing those distresses and where they are and what the percentage is, all in an inspection comment. Some just require put in a distress, describe it if it's needed. You know, if if a backflow preventer is leaking, I probably don't need to be told that it's leaking over 20% of the backflow preventer. I'm gonna walk up and say, hey, the backflow preventer's leaking, I can take care of it. But if there's damage to the interior walls, I need to know where those are and how bad is it. So that's helpful to have a percentage or a location or a location in the inspection comment. So like most things, if it's laid out in a scope of work, follow the scope of work. But if you don't have that in your scope of work, make sure you have that, because otherwise the assessors are going to put in whatever they want. And again, these inspection comments, similar to a section detail, builder doesn't care. It's informational only to the user. The algorithm isn't going to change. Builder doesn't look at it and go, oh, something's loose versus something's missing, I'm going to change my degradation. It doesn't happen that way. It's just information only, so that you know, it'll come out in the work plan, you'll know what's wrong. All right, age-based ratings. Age-based ratings happen when you let builder determine the condition index instead of you. And it's based on age, based on where it is on that life cycle curve on that day. How easy are they to do? Boom, I just did one. And I just did another one. And I just did another one. So an age-based rating is the lack of an inspection. So if you don't have an inspection, it automatically age bases. And that's actually what builder does every day. But from your last inspection point, it starts age basing it on that curve from its last known point. Use age-based ratings for things you can't see. For sure, you want to do it on stuff you can't see. The foundation, unless it's a warehouse, you're going to do an age-based rating. The ductwork, unless it's exposed, you're going to do an age-based rating. Branch wiring, can't see it, you're going to age-base it. That makes sense. Going back to what I said earlier about what about the stuff you can't see inside? A water heater, a circ pump, whatever it might be that you can't see inside, big proponent of age-based ratings. I like age-based ratings on anything that is powered, anything that moves, basically. I like having an age-based rating on, because otherwise I'm just trying to guess where builder might be putting the rating. And that's not a good way to do an assessment, is trying to outguess builder of where you think it should be based on its age. Let builder do it. You do, however, need to verify the inventory, because you're going off of that life cycle curve. Builder needs to know exactly where that starting point is and what the material is to know how long that curve is. Is it a 20-year curve, or is it a 40-year curve? You have to verify the inventory to make sure that an age-based is accurate. And I am a cynical former project manager, and if you tell me that an assessor can not do an inspection and be done, I'm going to wonder, how do I know they did an inspection? How do I know they did an age-based rating? Because it is the lack of an inspection becomes an age-based rating. So many agencies will require an inventory comment saying, I'm doing an age-based rating. Note that you can't do an inspection comment, and this is another thing that's counterintuitive. You can't do an inspection comment saying you're doing an age-based rating, because an age-based rating is not an inspection. So there's no place to put that inspection comment on an age-based rating. It's got to be an inventory comment. I'm doing an age-based rating. Some agencies have a required format for that age-based comment. Some, if you just put age-based, you know what it is. But at least there's something in there that we know that it was actually meant to be age-based and not just forgotten. Or the assessor ran off and played golf all afternoon, like I would probably do, and said that they were done. Okay. All right, let's go back to the life cycle curve and look at it from the perspective of when an inspection happens. So that outside curve is the original curve that's based solely on its starting point and whatever it is, whatever its material or whatever that You know, if it's a door or if it's a air conditioning condenser, whatever it might be, everything's got a curve. And of course, the end of its design life is at 40. And let's say we put an inspection on this at, according to that, looks like we're putting an inspection on it next year. So we'll pretend that it's actually 2024. And what I want to show here, and this of course is just a demonstration of what this looks like on a curve, but that little difference from where builder thought it would be in 2024, 2025, to where that inspector put it isn't very much. But when you project that all the way out to its design life, that little change in this example took off 3 years of that service life. So instead of 20 years, you're now going to get 17 years out of that item. So super important when doing the inspections to get that number as accurate as possible, because it affects everything. All of a sudden, you've got to replace whatever this item is 3 years earlier than you planned on it. That's big. That's a lot. Note also that maybe the next assessor comes along and in 2028 and says it's doing better than they thought it was projected to do. And maybe actually the rating goes up. Builder will take only from that last inspection. It doesn't incorporate anything that happened prior to it. Builder cares from today on. Builder doesn't care from yesterday and back. So that curve could actually take it's coming down. That inspection from 2024, 2025 brought it down, but maybe the one in 2028 jumps it back up and it creates a new curve. And then maybe you'll get that service life back if something was fixed or maintained better to have that inspection go higher. But very important to get that inspection right. All right, there are some additional training resources on the Searle website. And there's some different videos and other things. On that last one, it's some videos that we did for the Army for re-inspections. So if you want about 4 more hours of me talking, go to that last one, and you'll see me running around with a hard hat on. So those are some free resources. There's some other ones later, and that's probably going to be part of what Kelly loads on for the resources. There'll probably be some training stuff there, and she's looking at me like I'm crazy. So we'll make sure that we add some resource links to that area. All right, who's ready for a quiz before you go to lunch? All right. Let's do some ratings. And we're going to have our instant polling here. I'm going to have a QR code come up here in a second, but I want you to see the full picture first. And I took most of these pictures, so I can give you the background on a lot of these.
How old is it?
All right, we had a question of how old is this one? Okay, so let me back up. So this is obviously a roof. It was pretty large. It was actually on a hanger, if I recall. And this was fairly typical of the condition throughout this roof. This wasn't just an isolated area. Active facility. It was, so Renalda asked how old it was. I don't remember the exact year, but it was old. It was a pretty old roof. Staff reported that it did not leak, which surprises me. But that could also be because when a roof leaks, it isn't always just a direct drop straight down from wherever the problem is. Sometimes it can run down a roof deck or something else and come down into a wall. So, but pooling water is an indication that it's not. Pooling water says the water's there. The water's not there. And that's a good point. He says that there's pooling water, so maybe it doesn't leak because the water obviously is there. So there's your background on that. And let's go to, there's your QR code. I think it's the same code. It should pop right back up. Let's see what you got. Online, please join us too. So we're rating the whole roof. We're not rating just this area. And I may have to refresh because I see 10 people have already come in. So let's go back and go forward. There we go. All right, we've got Amber Minus leading. Okay, who picked green minus? Are you guys messing with me? All right, so it looks like it's pretty strong majority that an amber minus is the consensus. I would, when I'm looking at this, and I was on this roof, so I know where we did it, I would also consider thinking about that red plus just because of how bad that is. And think about that one graphic that I showed about the remaining service life before it gets replaced. An amber minus might give it too much life left. So I would consider the red plus. But if I'm at a red plus and you're at an amber minus, I'm not going to flag that when I'm doing a data review. I'd say because we're within tolerance of that one level. So I'd say we're close, but just think about that red plus.
So this would actually say that amber is correct because more people are +1 or +. So if we're just going by the numbers here, it would say that amber is correct because there's more +1 +minuses to the amber than there are.
Oh,
to the
you're talking about
amber
collectively
minus.
as a group of amber? That is true.
You're voted off the island.
That is true. If you add up all the ambers, they're going to be more than what the reds were. That is true. And oh, here we go.
I want to make sure I'm clear on the kind of how much stock you put into the age. So let's just say we were looking at it and there's no problems, but we know it's a 20-year-old roof. What are you thinking then? Are you still amber so that you don't affect the life cycle?
So there's no visible distresses.
Yeah, we don't have the cracking.
But we know it's 20 years old.
But we know it's 20 years old.
Yeah. You might go to the default green minus.
So you're still looking at it.
But I'm also I gotta think about where the design life is on that particular roof type.
Okay.
If I don't know it, then I'm going in blind. But if I know that it's 20 years old, but it's a 30-year roof,
that's what I'm thinking.
Then I'm probably green minus, amber plus,
No
just
matter
because of that risk is a
Got
little
it.
bit higher.
Okay. No, thank you. That answers that question.
All right.
Are you not double counting the age? If you take into account age?
Mike. Sorry.
Hey, good morning. Kyle McCarthy with the Coast Guard. If you take into account the age and then builder takes into account the age, are you not double counting the age? Because we all can make an adjustment for a roof for age, and if we all pick amber minus, knowing that it's old, we know that builder's going to pull it down into red. So why would we put it in red because how old it is, and then builder drags it down more? Would that not be double counting?
Builder will only do that if it's 150% of its design life. So it's got to be way past its design life before builder starts doing any kind of an adjustment.
Okay, thank you.
But I still think it's fair to add as much risk factor because of age. I have no problem putting a lower rating on something because of its age, even if it's adding on to something the builder might do. Maybe builder doesn't have to make that adjustment because you've made it based on age. But I still have no problem with it being worse because of that age, because of that risk factor. Yes?
Paul, my name's Jared Skellick. I'm with the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. I think it depends on your organization because ours specifically says in bold underlined letters, do not take into account age when doing assessments.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, there's definitely agencies that don't want that at all. They only want the physical condition on that day. I don't agree with it, but that is, a lot of agencies do that. And I'm guessing it's because they don't want the assessors to kind of like think of what the impact might be, because it is, you know, how bad is that impact on age? So you do have to do some thinking on that, and it may not be because of the consistency. Right, yeah.
Daniel Lamberger with Garver. Would you consider sectioning out the roof for what's flooded versus what's not flooded?
I'm glad you asked that. Because this was pretty typical of the entire roof, I would not. If this was the only spot on the roof, I might do that. And that would also depend on if that scope of work allowed sectioning by condition. And if not, then I would just keep it as one section and downgrade it based on what I'm seeing. All right, let's do another one. That was fun. All right. This is a boiler, and I know that because in the upper right of it, it says boiler number 7. So for an architect like me, I love it when things are labeled boiler, because I would look at that and go, what is that, an ice machine? I have no idea what that is. So it conveniently says boiler number 7, so I know that's a boiler. This was less than a year old when we took this, or when I took this picture. All right, so let's go.
Where's the pictures from the back? That's a nice picture from the front. You can't see everything around.
Yeah, don't consider the rest of it. Just consider only what you see on the picture. Ugh. So the question was, what's the design life of a boiler? Yeah, I'm thinking 15. I'm not quite sure. Anybody in the room know what a design life on a boiler is? All right, so let me refresh the screen and come back. Red minus, come on, who's doing the red minus? Come on. It's probably, oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't scroll, that's right, we put what is the rating on that one? Yeah, and I can't scroll or it's gonna advance. I wonder if the red minus is coming from the people back in our office who are just trying to mess with me. All right, so majority at a mid-green. Hard to argue. I wouldn't argue with a green plus on that because it was less than a year old. I think it was only like 3 months or something when I took that picture. So mid-green, I like that. 57%, solid. You guys are ready for the field after 2 pictures. All right, let's do another one. Yeah, don't you love that? All right, so this is a chemical feed water tank. Has a few issues. All right, let's go. What was that? I missed that. Paint it. He said paint it, yes. And then it's a green. It did not. The question was, did it work? It did not work. All right, so let me, oops. There it is, okay. Oh, I guess I gotta go the other way. Let me go this way and come back. There we go. Okay, this is overwhelmingly going into a red minus. I like that a lot. I'd say we would be consistent on a red minus on that. Oh, what is a rating has finally appeared. Thanks for whoever's doing that. Should have put a restriction on some of these. I see where this is going to go with the rest of the pictures. I see where this is going. All right, 83%. I like it. All right. Okay, if you can't see this on the picture, that is water inside of a light fixture. This one is a little more fun with the comments, but it's hard to do that in a room with 200 people and 200 people online to talk about the comments. But this one usually gets more discussion about what the comments should be on this one. All right, so let me advance forward and come. Oh, I don't have to go back. Do I? Let me see. There we go. That should load. Green, of course. Thanks a lot. We got an amber on this one. While those are coming in, I'll talk about the comments that where you would put it if you're doing distresses in your comments, what you might do on a distress on this. I bring it up on this one because people often will say, we'll use leaks as a distress to describe this. And I will say, that's not good because a light fixture can't leak. So it's something else that's leaking. It's also a good demonstration of when, if you're responsible for doing the electrical on the lights and you see something like that, you got to let the other person that know either on the roof, because if the roof's leaking, or we got a pipe leak. So let the other assessors know that there's a problem so that they can spend some more time and try to figure out where it is. All right, coming in at mid-amber. And this is also something that I would notify the facility manager. I sure hope that he already knows that there's water in his light fixtures, but if there's not, I would alert him immediately. All right, so mid-amber coming in, amber minus. Yeah, I would say that that's probably not bad for the light fixture, but then if you went to the source, and this turned out to be the fire, this is that one building that had that fire, the fire protection leak. That I would give a lower rating on, but I couldn't get a picture of it because it was inside the ceiling. Paul Thiel, somebody online?
Comment asking about the light fixture. Does it work? That's not the issue.
It works. It worked. And this actually was on several light fixtures on this floor, actually one wing of this one building. It was a horrible building. Whew. And it had a lot of organic growth in this building. A lot. Okay, let's do another one. All right, we've got the exterior wall. Oh, sorry.
Tyler with USDA. Almost all of the pictures that we've looked at so far, the background information you've given has affected my personal rating. If a installation or a site doesn't have good facility maintenance personnel or doesn't have good background information, would you just recommend doing age-based ratings for everything?
Age-based ratings work the best if it's degrading naturally. If there's an outside influence on that rating, then it's not degrading naturally, and I would put a direct rating on it, even if I didn't know anything about the background. So if it's just normal degradation, age-based is great, but because there might be an outside influence, then I would direct rate. And if I can see it, I'm going to do a direct rating. All right, any other questions? All right, so here's our brick wall. This crack running up the wall on the corners was on 3 of the 4 corners of this building. No, it was in, oh, thank you, Faltio. Asked if this was in California, I'm assuming because of the seismic activity. No, it was not. It was in, it was east somewhere. Not that, yeah, not where there might be some seismic activity. All right, let me go, oops. So I'm gonna go that one and come back. Interesting one on this one is that because I was just monitoring the assessment team on this one, so there was an architect doing the walls, and I thought that it was the foundation, because there were some foundation issues that we could see. She suggested that it was the lack of an expansion joint on the wall that was pushing those corners. And I thought that was interesting too. So could be a multiple number of reasons of why. Builder doesn't care why. Builder just cares what it is. All right, we're in amber minus, which would be major repair. I think I agree with that. You're probably not going to replace that. You probably would try to repair that. So yeah, the ambers are amber minus and amber. All right, that looks good. I like that. You guys are awesome. All right, I love this one. I tell this story every time I show this picture. I couldn't get my phone out fast enough to take this picture. I was like, I was like fumbling to, oh my God, I got to get this picture. I'm going to use this in training for the rest of my life. All right, so air conditioning condenser on cinder blocks. And for the longest time, I thought that little piece that's kind of on the bottom right, I thought that was like a stake going in that was the reinforcing of the CMU, but I realized that would be impossible because that bottom one is going the other direction. It can't go through. So it's just a shim trying to level it off, which of course is probably tweaking the frame of that entire unit also. So all kinds of things going on in this one. It is, he says that's a low-cost repair. On the shim, maybe. It did work. Yeah, the question was, did it work? It worked. That's true. And Paul Tail, do you have something from online?
I do. The question was going back to the boiler rating. If it was 3 months old, why would it not be a green plus? Rating it green shortens its RSL, right?
Agree. I think we did in the field rate that a green plus, but because it was one level, the majority had a mid-green. It was with one level of tolerance. But you're absolutely right. And that goes back to that one graphic of how much that change of an inspection on that curve can change that remaining service life. So that difference between a green plus and a mid-green could shave some years off of that boiler. All right, so let me go forward and refresh. Come on, nobody's in yet? There we go. Wow. A mid-green, come on. All right, we got ambers and amber minus leading. You know, there is an argument on this that, you know, the mounting of it is probably the worst part. I mean, we do have rust, we've got fin damage, it worked. It probably doesn't have a whole lot left, but it is working and going into the reds, maybe too far. I kind of like the amber minus on this one, because I definitely want someone to come out there and take a look at that one. But that's within tolerance of that one level, so this is good. All right, let's do an easier one. It's not as fun as the other ones. Nothing's falling apart or anything. All right, let's go to that. Let me go back. And this was pretty typical of this floor. Okay, green minus, amber plus, again within one level, and mid-green within one level. Yeah, there was nothing loose on this. It really was just gunk, but it was beyond normal cleaning because it got normal cleaning and it still looked like that. So it needs a little bit more, but. The question was, do I care how old it is? I mean, it's a floor, so I don't have to worry about if it fails, the building doesn't fail. You know, it's just going to be floor tile. So I care a little bit less on a floor finish. But a green minus, okay. Amber plus, mid-green, I like that. Let's do a couple more. Let's do the window on this. This was on the coast, so that rust would be expected. And it was a World War II building, so these were really old. This is original. All right, let me go refresh and come back. Also note that when I do a training of assessors, you know, we're taking some time on this. If we're in the field, I'd say you got 30 seconds to look at this and give it a rating. It's like, let's go, look at it, rate it, move on to the next thing. Yes, this did leak. The question was, did it leak? So the pattern of being out in the field is look at it, make that determination quick, get it, and move on to the next thing. Take a couple of minutes if you need to for inventory, but on an inspection, 30 seconds go. I mean, obviously, if it's a roof and it's a 100,000 square foot roof, you're not going to do that in 30 seconds. But for the most part, if you've got something in front of you, don't examine it, don't poke things, don't look at everything, and it's like just rate it and go. All right, you got red and red plus. All right, so mid-red is leading, and we're flanking it on both sides with the plus and minus. I like that. That's great. Okay, here's a fun one. So normally on a foundation, if there's a building on top of it, you can't see it, you're going to age base it. This was a warehouse, so we could see the foundation. Even if I could see the foundation, I still might even age base it, except obviously now we've got some damage. So this is an event that happened. It could be natural, it could have been caused by something, but this is not degrading naturally now. So now I'm going to put a direct rating on it because I can see it. All right, so let's go there, come back.
Was this a corner? Was it all the way across the slab?
It was 30 feet long near a corner. I think it went all the way through, if I recall, because it was a long, narrow warehouse. And I think it went all the way through, if I recall. This is a while ago. And for distresses, this is where it would be broken, because we are broken into two pieces. And it's displaced a little bit, too. We've got a little elevation change on it. So I would add displaced into my inspection comments. And it's tough on a foundation because those are tough to replace, expensive to repair. All right, the reds are coming up to the top. I like that. We okay back there, Paultiel? All right, I like that. Okay, I mentioned a roof hatch earlier. This might look familiar to some people in the audience that I'm looking at. All right, we got a roof hatch. And really why I'm showing this one, its condition was fairly typical for its age. But what scared the crud out of me was, see where it's located? a couple of inches from the edge of a roof with no parapet. I did not like this roof hatch. So let's, there we go. So in the comments, this is definitely one that we alerted the facility manager to of this is not safe. I mean, you're up on it's a 2-story building and the wind's blowing, it's cold, and you get out of that hatch and you're right on the edge of the building. What was that? Ronaldo says that should be locked down. All right, we got a clear winner on the mid-ambers. I don't disagree. Okay, here's another fun one. This one's tough because there's so many things wrong with this one. So for the purposes of training, let's just focus on the downspouts. Because if you notice, we also have efflorescence on the exterior bricks. We also have, it's not an illusion on that photo, that sidewalk really does tilt towards the building. So not only do we not have downspouts going all the way out and clearing the water, even if it did, it's gonna come right back anyway. So there's no splash blocks, there's no anything doing that. But let's just do it for the downspouts to make it easy. Otherwise, what was that? There were problems on the inside of this building. Oh, let's see, I gotta go here and come back. And then for the inspection comments on here, we've got pieces of the downspouts missing, we've got damage to the downspouts. So I would definitely include that in an inspection comment. Red and red minus on the downspouts, okay. Okay, I like that. And again, within one level, so good job. Let's do one more, and we'll get you out early to lunch. I like this one because it usually gets a pretty good discussion of, is it operable or not? And someone's always saying, well, I could wash my hands in there. It worked. You might cut your hands, but you could wash your hands in it, so it may not be completely inoperable. So let's go forward, come back. Oh, we lost our picture. No, picture's up in the corner. But it's not something, you can't really repair that. I mean, you could throw some Bondo on there, I guess, and plug it up, but that's not good. You would not repair that. So red minus, I like that. And the reds and the red pluses. So again, we're all within one level. I like what I see. Let's stop there. Last chance for questions. We'll get you to lunch a little early. Any questions? Paul, tell anything from online? Oh, we got one question. Hang on. Got a question?
Hi. So my question is regarding the life cycle curve. You keep showing that at the highest risk point of the asset's life cycle that it is a condition index of 40. How is that 40 determined?
That's a good question. That's within builders' algorithms. That
It's just out of the box.
correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's just set the way it is. That no matter what that section is, whatever that design life is, it's when it hits 40. That's where builder determines the end of its design life. And I'm assuming that's because it could always go on forever and ever. There's still stuff from World War II that we see out there that is working just fine. So I'm assuming it's because of that.
Okay, to your knowledge, does Builder break down why? Sorry, I'm a mom. I'm used to hearing why. So I'm curious as to what the determining factor was.
Of why they put it at 40?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, unless there's someone. Oh. The question was, why did Builder determine the end of all design lives to be at 40 CI? I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, regardless of what it is. We've got Matt tomorrow. We could ask him. But yeah, I don't know specifically why. But like I said, I think it's because it allows a little bit more room if it's maintained well or not used often, that it can just keep on going on its life. I'm assuming that.
Okay, thank you. We'll bug Matt tomorrow.
All right, another question.
Melissa Belton, Booz Allen. So I have a question about the estimated click button. Unless you click that, your CI is never going to be the CI that's represented in the system. It'll always be some point between what the degradation curve says and what you input as your observed CI.
Unless it's beyond that 150% of its design life. That's when it kicks in.
So if it's less than the 150, it'll be your CI?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's only one on the extremes, either side. It's like 50% in or 150 out. I forget exactly, maybe it's 25 in, I forget what it is. But it's got to be well beyond its design life before Builder will kick that in. Otherwise, it trusts the assessor.
Can we get clarification on that? On when it
Yeah, can do. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 5150, but I can check on that. Last chance for questions? Sweet. Let's go to lunch. When are we coming back? Is it 1:30? Is it 1? 1. We're coming back at 1. Thanks, everybody.